All right, so today we're actually going to do something different. We got Luke here from Headfulness. He has a YouTube channel as well, and we are going to talk about stress relief today and how can you actually deal optimally with your stress, because it doesn't matter what you're doing in life, there will be some stimuli from outside, something will happen in the world and you might get stressed, and we talk about today how you can deal with that stress optimally. So hello, Luke, and thanks for being on my channel.
Thanks for having me, Marco.
Yeah, so I would say we just directly get started. I would like to just shoot out the first question to you and actually ask you, what do you think is the major reason for being stressed? Could you generalize that and say that most people are stressed due to this and this factors?
Yeah, definitely. So I think at a high level, stress is what you feel when you're outside of your comfort zone. So when you're comfortable, you feel, or when you're in your comfort zone, you feel comfortable. And then when you step out of your comfort zone, that's where you start to feel stress. And so you can have a really healthy balance of this where you step out of your comfort zone and you experience the stress and it makes you stronger. Then you go back to your comfort zone, you recover, you go back to the stressful situation. And some people call this like stress resilience. It's just having this healthy balance of comfort and stress, and using stress to make you stronger. Now, where that balance kind of goes out of place is, and like chronic stress is when you go back to your comfort zone and you still feel that stress that you felt in the stressful situation. And so, as far as for what causes that, I think there's kind of two pieces. There's the cognitive aspect, and then there is the physiological aspect. And so the cognitive aspect, these are your thinking patterns, right? And so there's different thinking patterns that cause stress. And if you want to look this up, they're called cognitive distortions. And there's these 10 thinking patterns that cause stress, anxiety, depression, anger. And one of the examples is called all or nothing thinking. And so this is a case, this is where you kind of break the world into black and white categories. Things are either good or they're bad, or things are perfect or they're completely worthless, right? And so what kind of happens when you go back to your comfort zone and you bring this all or nothing thinking, you'll start, maybe you start thinking about things that happened during the day and you're like, oh, why did I say that? Like, I'm such an idiot. Like that's an all or nothing thinking, because, you know, you're not an idiot. You're a human who sometimes behaves like an idiot. So that's one type of cause of breaking this balance between your comfort zone and your stress. When you come back to your comfort zone and you bring these thinking patterns, that's what starts to cause this imbalance of your stress and comfort. Now, the other half of it, so that's the cognitive side. The other half of it is the physiological side. And so this is like your nervous system. And when it comes to your nervous system, there's the autonomic nervous system, which you can think of as your subconscious nervous system. And it has kind of two branches. They're called the sympathetic and the parasympathetic nervous system. And so the sympathetic, that's responsible for activating the body. This is responsible for fight or flight. It helps you wake up in the morning. It helps you get moving. The parasympathetic is totally opposite. They call this the rest and digest response. It handles relaxing the body. It handles digestion, your immune system, things like that. Kind of totally opposite. And so one thing that happens with the autonomic nervous system is you get into a sympathetic bias. And so this means that you have a bias towards the fight or flight response. And so essentially what starts to happen is, for any given situation, you're more likely to go towards fight or flight than you are towards rest and digest. And that's what can cause like panic attacks and just this chronic stress or this, anxiety disorder.
Yeah.
And so it's that blend between the cognitive aspect and this physiological, the way your nervous system is kind of reacting to the world.
Okay. So basically what you're saying, really, it usually boils down from a cognitive perspective really to thinking patterns that you have, and maybe those are maybe even implicitly affect then also your physical reaction to fight or flight. So there might be some subconscious thinking pattern that you used to have, and stimuli come in from outside. Maybe your boss stresses you or anything stresses you in life, and then you react this way. So my question would be now, okay, that's interesting, but how could you deal now with that?
So you kind of have to deal with each one on its own. So there's the cognitive aspect where you want to kind of change your thinking patterns to avoid the cognitive distortions. And so one thing you can do is, I think a great place to start is just to do a Google search and look up these 10 thinking patterns, the cognitive distortions.
Okay.
And so we talked about all or nothing thinking. There's another one that's kind of similar called overgeneralization. This is where you tend to say things like, you tend to treat a specific one-time event as a pattern, like a pattern of defeat. So this is where, let's say you don't get a promotion, or you don't achieve some goal. And then you say something like, I never get what I want, or I never succeed, or I'll never be successful.
Mm.
So what you can do is what's called thought journaling. And what you'll do, you can find apps for this. But what you'll do is, when you notice that you're feeling stressed or anxious, you'll start to trace back and you'll say, what was I just thinking about that was making me feel stressed? And you'll go into this thought journaling app, and you'll go through a process of like, okay, what situation was it? What was the specific thought that I was thinking? And then what cognitive distortion does that thought fall under? So if you were feeling stressed and all of a sudden you realize, oh, I was just telling myself I'm an idiot and I'll never be successful and all of that, you would just go into this app, and from the cognitive distortions, you say, okay, I was doing all or nothing thinking, I was doing overgeneralization. And then, you can sometimes wrap up all 10 of these cognitive distortions into one thought. And so by doing this regularly, by recognizing, okay, I'm feeling stressed, I'm feeling anxious, what was I thinking about that got me here? Going through that process of writing it down, figuring out what cognitive distortion it applies to. And then the last step there is you want to write a replacement thought. And so this is where, if you catch yourself saying, I'm such an idiot, in your replacement thought, you would say, okay, I'm not an idiot. I'm a human who sometimes behaves like an idiot. And you just try to create a more objective way of thinking about the situation. And so that's kind of an approach to, do you have a question?
No, actually, I was just smiling through it while you were talking, because basically in cognitive behavioral therapy and partly in coaching sessions I give, when I talk about habits, I do the same.
Yeah.
When you do a habit and you slack back to your old habit, there's usually some belief popping in, like, it doesn't matter now. Now I can do it once at least. And then there's again a wrong thinking pattern in there that you don't see in the moment, but later on, reflecting on it, you realize that, and then you can change the beliefs just the way that you did that.
Yeah. So yeah, it's a great way to, I'd say with 2 weeks of doing that, of kind of diligently recognizing when you feel stressed, writing down what you're thinking about, really in about 2 weeks, you can make a real impact on your thinking patterns.
Yeah.
Now,
do you have actually an example of in your life when you felt really stressed and you dealt with that this way?
Yeah. So here's an interesting one. I'd been writing. So this was about 2 years ago. I was dealing with some pretty severe anxiety. I'd actually had a panic attack and fainted at work, and then it kind of got me on this path. This is before I started Headfulness, but it got me on this path of met with a therapist, started reading just tons of books on this subject. But then, so I started doing the thought journaling. And what I started to realize was I was driving home, and I kept noticing that I was getting real anxious. I would write down a lot of thoughts in this app that I was using. And for the situation, it would be driving home from work. And so as I looked at these thoughts, I was like, man, I've got like almost half of the thoughts that I'm writing down, the situation was driving home from work. And so I realized that there's something about driving and being in traffic that was kind of getting me on edge. And then it would start these thinking patterns that would kind of perpetuate the stress and anxiety.
Mm.
And so by finding this pattern, it was just made me aware of the situation when I was driving home from work, that I was like, okay, be more mindful of what you're thinking about, because in this situation, I tend to fall into these negative thinking patterns. And so I started using the driving to be more, to relax and to just be conscious of my thoughts and make it more of a mindful experience. Another thing that I had caught doing this thought journaling. So I had written down some thought. I can't remember the specific thing. I was like, how did I get here? Like, what is the whole path? And I realized that about 2 hours before that, I was at my job in the office, and there was a really loud sound behind me, like somebody slammed a door or dropped a box. And at that time, my reaction was, oh, is that like a burglar, or is that someone here to commit violence? And at the time I was like, okay, it's like just somebody just slammed a door. It was nothing. But then my mind went to the next step, which was like, well, what if it was a burglar? What if it was a terrorist or whatever? And then it's like, okay, well, there's 2 exits here. I could hide under the desk, etc. And essentially what happened is 2 hours later, I realized I was feeling stressed, and I started tracing my thoughts all the way back to this time where the person slammed the door. And it kind of revealed a pattern to me that when there were really loud sounds behind me, it would trigger some kind of fight or flight response, and I would start a thinking pattern. And then 2 hours later, I'm feeling really stressed. And all I had to do was, if I would have caught it initially, to realize like, oh, I don't need to think about exit strategies.
Okay.
I can just stay present and relaxed.
So awareness is probably here again, the key to
Mm-hmm.
become aware of your thinking patterns.
Yeah.
Nice.
And writing them down is it makes such a difference in becoming aware of the patterns, because so often you just get caught in the thought and you stick with it for 2 hours or 2 days or 2 years. Like, you can just get caught up in the windfall of a stressful thought.
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
I have a personal question, because I'm doing now my second master here at university. I'm also having Straight Mind as a business. I'm traveling a lot, so I'll have a lot of stuff to do, and I know, like, I'm stressed sometimes, and I know what needs to get done, but there's just so much in the back of my mind, and I know that stress is not helping me, but it's still there. I'm meditating a lot. I built the habit of 20 minutes meditation every morning, and it helps. But I still would like to get some additional advice. What helps me in this moment? You just have a lot to do, and you would like to do that, but you would just like to lower your stress, because I can handle it, and the stress is just not helping me. It's just more harming me. So what would you advise for me in this situation?
So what I would try to do is, so you're aware of the cognitive aspect, but you're still feeling stressed.
Yeah, because there's
right?
just a lot of things to do and a lot of back of my mind.
So this is a good time to focus on relieving the physical symptoms of the stress. And so one thing you can do are breathing exercises. And so, and we're talking about like rhythmic breathing exercises. We talked earlier about the parasympathetic nervous system and the sympathetic nervous system.
Yeah.
Essentially, the way that relates to your breathing is, when you inhale, it stimulates the fight or flight side, the sympathetic nervous system. And when you exhale, it stimulates the parasympathetic nervous system, or the rest and digest. And so what you can do is, if you inhale and exhale in a really rhythmic pattern, it'll start to create balance between these two sides of your nervous system. And you can actually see this happen with what's called biofeedback. Have you ever done biofeedback before?
No, I read about it.
Yeah, so you can get a little heart rate monitor, and I actually have one right here. it's called a heart rate variability monitor. And what you can do is you can clip this to your earlobe and it'll connect to an app and you can see your heart rate in real time. And the goal is you want to get your heart rate to take on this pattern of smoothly speeding up and then slowing down. And so basically what happens is it gets perfectly in sync with your breath. When you inhale, your heart rate will speed up. And when you exhale, your heart rate will slow down. Some people call this cardiac coherence. That's the word you can look up for that. But with about 20 minutes of rhythmic breathing, let's say 6 seconds in, 6 seconds out, and using this biofeedback to actively try to get your heart rate to come into this nice, smooth, rhythmic pattern, like it's literally the opposite of stress. Because when you're stressed, your heart rate looks totally opposite. It's like all jagged and unpredictable. And when you're relaxed, it takes on this nice, smooth, rhythmic pattern. And so by using, like I used to have the same problem where I would meditate for 20 minutes or even an hour, and I would finish and I would still feel stressed at the end. Like maybe I felt more aware. Maybe I was building my awareness, but I wasn't feeling any less stressed. And when I started doing this biofeedback and the breathing exercises, it really helped that problem to where I could, in about 20 minutes, really get my stress levels really, really low on a consistent basis.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, like breathing exercises with the help of biofeedback is probably what I would recommend.
All right. Nice. And I will give that a try.
Yeah.
Is there any question that I didn't ask you yet, but would be really powerful, or any advice that you feel like, oh, you haven't shared yet and gives people the most value?
So another thing we could mention is relieving the muscle tension in your body is another like huge part of relieving stress. Because I don't know if when you're feeling stressed, do you ever notice feeling tension in your shoulders or your lower back or your stomach or anything like that?
I feel this especially after like 10, 15 minutes of meditating, that then suddenly like I release more of my muscles and I'm like, oh, I was not even aware that those were so tight.
Yeah.
That's what I realized.
Yeah. So you can go through this process of relaxing every muscle in your body, and it's called progressive muscle relaxation.
Mm-hmm.
And essentially the way you relax a muscle, the shoulders are like a prime area for me, where there's times throughout the day where I just kind of check in with the muscle tension throughout my body. And I'll realize that my shoulders are like up here, and that I've just been holding them for who knows how long. And so to relax your shoulders, what you can do is you can raise your shoulders up as high as they can go, like you're trying to touch them to your ears, and then just hold that tension, and then exhale and just gently let them lower and relax. And that's a great way to just really let go of that tension in these muscles around your shoulders. And this idea of progressive muscle relaxation, you would basically start with your eyebrows and then work your way gradually down past your shoulders, relaxing your hands, your stomach, your hips, your pelvic floor, all the way down to your feet. And so that's another one, being mindful of the tension in your body, and then using this progressive muscle relaxation to relax the muscles and just get a ton of stress relief.
Yeah, nice. And that's something you can easily do throughout the day. Just quickly.
Another one is the hands. If you can relax your hands, you'll feel kind of a wave of relaxation spread through your body. So to relax your hands, you can just expand them as wide as they can go, stretching them as much as you can. Just hold that there and then let it relax. And you'll feel some relaxation kind of go up your forearms, into your elbows, and helps to relax your whole body.
Yeah, I've seen that where you really go through the entire body from up, down, and then really tight everything and then relax everything piece by piece.
Yeah. No, I got a funny story of, I think it was about 2 years ago. There was a night where I couldn't fall asleep one night. It was like 2 in the morning. I was just laying in bed, couldn't fall asleep. And I had this terrible muscle tension in my shoulders, stomach, lower back. And I remember thinking to myself, I said, I was just laying there trying to relax. And I said to myself, I'm trying as hard as I can to relax and nothing's happening. And then I realized, like, wait a minute, is it even possible to relax if I'm trying as hard as I can? And by realizing that, I kind of was able to relax and finally fall asleep. But then the next morning, the muscle tension was still there. And so that's when I learned about this progressive muscle relaxation. It's been having a technique to relieve this tension versus just trying to do it all in your mind is it's really been a life changer.
Nice. All right. Then thank you for your time. Would you like to share any thoughts? Where can people find you and what you're doing?
Yeah, so if you want to learn more about the breathing exercises and these relaxation techniques, I've got a free ebook that you can download. It's called Breathing Secrets, and you can go to breathingsecretsbook.com and just enter your email and you can download it for free.
All right, nice. We will just put the links in the description below. Thank you for your time, Luke, and for the practical exercises. I hope it helped you guys as well. And I will see you in the next video. And now we're actually shooting an interview on your channel about habit formation. So if you're into that, check out Luke's channel anyway for the other exercises, but also for the habit formation interview. Thank you.
Thanks, Marco.